It's a bittersweet feeling to realize one of your favorite games is about to get its last major story content. Yet what an incredible way to conclude one of the most thrilling chapters in recent Cyberpunk lore. I did not think it was possible they could elevate the story any further, yet CD Projekt Red managed to completely blow my expectations away with possibly the best expansion to a video game I've played in recent years. It took me roughly 17 hours to wrap up Phantom Liberty's campaign, plus some of the extra missions and gigs along the way, and another 50 or more to mess around with its endless open world events and all the new things in Update 2.0. So huge thanks again to CDPR for letting me play it early. Unfortunately, we can't use our own gameplay footage for this review, though CDPR kindly provided a lot of new B-roll from the beginning of the expansion. However, I promise you it plays even better in person. But CDPR announced this to be a spy thriller, however I found it to be so much more than that. It's a story of interpersonal relationships, societal failures, sacrifice and regret, but also friendship, honor and even love. This wouldn't be possible without a well-casted set of characters and excellent voice acting, both of which were completely nailed in Phantom Liberty. Literally every new supporting character, big and small, even from the ones never announced, were portrayed perfectly by their voice actors to deliver a very believable and emotional narrative. Idris Elba as Saul Reed was nothing short of a perfect cast, and in many ways he is very similar to Johnny. They both have strong convictions, both had somewhat similar backgrounds at one point, yet their decisions ultimately brought them to completely divergent paths. I also found Songbird's backstory to be very touching. She reaches out to you both to seek and to offer help, which is why I found her name to be such a perfect fit for her situation. Ultimately, this just shows you how similar to V she really is, and at times how interdependent their very lives are to one another. Then there's Rosalind. You'd expect a ruthless politician and a former corporate suit to be a very one-dimensional character, yet CDPR manages yet again to show a side of her that many don't get to see, a more human side. Moments of vulnerability that strip away the grandeur of political position, and you finally get to see a somewhat functioning adult. But there are more, like Kurt Hansen and even Mr. Hands, who get their own time to shine. Again, CDPR showing that appearances are deceiving, and behind the tough exterior, there's a keen intellect and strategic prowess that will make you second guess every interaction. In fact, throughout the main narrative of Phantom Liberty, I was constantly doubting my decisions and wondering if I sided with the wrong side or not, and was constantly searching for a perfect outcome. It was only until the very end and only after I tested every single conclusion that I realized there's no perfect outcome. This isn't a matter of right or wrong, black or white, but more like shades of gray that leave you with more questions and wanting more by the end of it. Despite its more condensed nature, I found Phantom Liberty's narrative to provide enough time to form these connections with each character, though I do admit I wished we had a lot more of it. And I definitely urge everybody who plays the campaign to not rush through it and instead find as much about every character as you can and spend as much time as you can in all of it. It will definitely be worth it. Along this stellar narrative, CDPR yet again proves that the musical score in the base game wasn't a fluke, but a masterfully choreographed piece that involved many talented musicians. The new tracks and radio stations are yet again top tier, and again making this one of the only or few games besides maybe 7 Remake where I actively search and listen to its songs. And there's also a moment in the main story they added this in a very spectacular and creative way that I've seen in recent video game media, so totally something worth seeing once you drop into the expansion. Of course, this would all mean nothing without proper content and replayability, which again I think the expansion really does a good job at it. Dogtown more than doubles the size of Pacifica, and despite that being just a fraction of the entire city, it manages to condense a lot of things in it. It's almost like a place of contrast, just like Night City itself, where the destitute and impoverished coexist alongside the affluent and vibrant. Pacifica, and by extension Dogtown, were supposed to be a retreat for the ultra elites, but was eventually abandoned, and you can see this still existing to this day. So while you can still see traces of that opulence, the place clearly went through a lot of degradation, just like the society that inhabits it. It feels like nothing is missing here though. There are vendors for literally everything: clothing, weaponry, Reaper dogs, and even more than that. Even completely new types of vendors that sell special shards that get permanent character boosts. And without spoiling anything here about these particular vendors, let's just say they will be instantly recognizable for those who pay attention to CD Projekt Red. On the street level, it also feels vastly different than Night City, and that's in part because the Bargis militia patrols it. Compared to the NCPD, they are leagues above in terms of combat power, so if you choose to mess with them, which you totally can as they are also the police forces in the district, you will get met with some very heavy firepower and also new types of enemies. But one thing I really loved about Phantom Liberty is its addition of these endless drop pod events. Basically, oftentimes you will see and hear caches of very valuable loot being dropped from the sky. If you follow the red smoke, you will stumble upon caches of extremely valuable loot that provides a ton of legendaries, new gear, skill shards, and many more valuables to unlock. But also likely the Bargis troops or other gangs moving in to grab it for themselves, so more often than not you will actually have to fight your way to grab them. It's a shame that this is only reserved to the Phantom Liberty expansion. I kinda wish that in the future CD Projekt Red brings something similar to the base version of the game too. Also, speaking of loot, I found it to be more abundant than ever since 2.0 and Phantom Liberty. First of all, the cosmetics added in the expansion are just top tier, and you will absolutely love all the new designs and cool armors CDPR added. The range from ultra-militaristic future tech to high style and everything else in between, it just gives you a new layer of character customization that just adds on everything that existed before. Weapons, a lot of which are acquired from the main narrative, are also numerous and stronger than ever, and there are a ton of them added new in Phantom Liberty. I found at least a dozen completely new types of weapons with insane effects, and that's on top of the already drastic changes and even revamps to the ones from the base game. But besides these, we also have the repeatable car gigs for El Capitan, and CDPR once again did a great job at making them feel fun. Now, oftentimes you have to steal a car, other times it involves chasing somebody down and then stealing it, and there are some random events happening around stealing these cars, but usually they kinda involve one thing, which is to bring them back to a certain destination so that El Capitan picks it off and you also get your reward. Rewards are also great here. This includes access to new vehicles as you complete these gigs more and more, but also discounts when buying these vehicles and a greater amount of loot along the way from the caches that you get. The only somewhat complaint I have here boils down to not having any new cosmetic cyberware options, which is a shame because there are tons of NPCs, new ones of course, with a ton of new features like full robotic armors and other body functions and body cyberware. I kinda wished we had that for V as well. I'm still keeping hopes high that's going to be maybe a last content update that CDPR might squeeze in through at some point, but I still have my doubts about it. However, they do kind of make up for it by completely revamping the cyberware system, which comes with 2.0. There are lots of new and very powerful cyber mods, many existing ones completely redesigned and with new effects, so gameplay wise you will have a lot to discover and do in 2.0 and Phantom Liberty. Plus, Phantom Liberty adds completely new cyber mods that maybe are even stronger than the ones in the base game in certain functions, so there is stuff to discover over there once it drops. Of course, I did mention that Nvidia Tech at the start of the video, and I found performance to be a major point of upgrade in 2.0 and Phantom Liberty, and this is mostly because of the DLSS 3.5, which is unfortunately not available on all hardware, but on the ones that it is, it makes an absolutely staggering difference. My frame rates, even though they were already high, shot up even higher, and they never dropped below 120 for me on max out everything, full on RDX, but just 2K resolution, so maybe that explains it. Plus, it makes the game look way better as reflections are on a whole different scale and level than before. I did, however, encounter a few bugs here and there and some crashes, usually bugs to some random animations like sitting up from the Reaper Dog chair or few UI bugs with the character skin, but mostly these were fixed by going in and out of the menus. Also, I did have a handful of crashes in the entire week of play, but I can't say for sure if it's the game or my previous save files. So these crashes mostly manifested when loading existing files from before 2.0, and in many situations I believe that these save files were heavily modded before I uninstalled the mod, so maybe that explains why it kept happening. But when starting new fresh files in 2.0, this never occurred, so I'm guessing you can add that to the list of reasons why you should start fresh starting tomorrow. But on a final conclusion, this is a solid must buy if you're a fan of Cyberpunk and want to get like the full final experience of everything. You can still stick to 2.0, but yeah, I mean, Phantom Liberty just adds so much more on top that is definitely worth it. Plus the extra level cap bump and the new items and the cool new narrative, it's absolutely worth it for every single second. I'm gonna give it an easy 9.5 out of 10. The only reason I'm subtracting 0.5 is because we don't get any extra cyber customization for our character, but I guess we're gonna fix that with mods. That's it with the video. Thanks so much for watching, and until the next one.